Before we start, I'd like to take a moment of silence for United States Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a trailblazer and an outstanding career of caring and beautiful legal mind. Thank you very much. Were we on or no? Was that on priorly? Okay. Again, in case we were not on, a beautiful, idyllic New England morning here in the city of Springfield. I hope you have a good day. And again, we just took a moment of silence for United States Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg for the outstanding career and life she led and the beautiful legal mind she had for us. I want to thank the sign language young ladies who are here again. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate that. And I'd like to also thank Patrick Leonardo, the operations manager, AMR, that is here. And again, we've partnered in a number of activities. Also want to thank Dr. Mark Kerouac, the President and CEO of Bay State Health Systems, and Dr. Robert Roos, the Chief Medical Officer for Mercy Hospital, Trinity Healthcare, who are faithfully here every Monday, and we deeply appreciate that, as does our viewing, listening, and reading public. They will come up again after I finish my brief update of cabinet heads, and they will give their updates, and they'll take questions right after that so they can get back to their important duties at their respected medical institutions. So at this point in time, and I think Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris will speak more about it, we, as it is sensing across the state a little bit, and obviously across the country, we are getting a little bit of an uptick. We still are in the green. We still are in the green, but the numbers over the weekend, Friday 7, Saturday 9, Sunday 13 confirmed cases, for a total of confirmed cases of 3,125 since this odyssey has begun. So the senior meals continue to be delivered. The testing continues. We have been able to expand or lengthen the testing until October 31st. And again, AMR, Fallon, AFC, besides what Bay State and Mercy is doing. So we're very thankful to Governor Baker on Stop the Spread. The good news on deaths, this now makes 1 month where we have not lost a Springfield individual, he or she. We have lost 131, and our thoughts and prayers and sympathy and encouragement go out to those families that have been affected. So it's status quo on the number. 57 have passed that are white, which is about 43.5%. Black, African American is 31, 23.7%. Hispanic is 41, 31.3%. Asian is 2 at 1.5%. The number stays the same. Long-term care facilities 57, residential 74. Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris continues to monitor our colleges in the Springfield area, and again she will speak to you about contact tracing. Extremely important. I know you'll hear from that from Dr. Kerouac and Dr. Roos. Director Sheehan, my Chief Development Officer Tim Sheehan, and I just Friday announced, and we're very thankful to Congressman Neal, who's always been our federal conduit, $3.5 million in Homeless Cares Money Act, and this is on the Emergency Solutions Act and grant. The specific thing here, and I want it built in, and there is a clawback to the agencies that receive this money, Catholic Charities, Friends of the Homeless, which is the CSO, New North Citizens Council, and the YWCA of Western Massachusetts. The old Doobie Brothers song of taking it to the streets. They must have and will have a component where they will assist Commissioner Claproot and our brave and dedicated men and women in blue. The initial call for someone who's working a corner, whether panhandling, goes to the police. And many a times, if there's not a criminal activity, there's a mental health issue, there's a drug addiction issue, there's a homelessness issue, at times it could be a prostitution issue. So this revolving door of the courts, which just let them right back out, is that this money, and this is what I wanted, and I appreciate Tim Sheen doing it, that these organizations will get a call from the police department on the initial response and say, hey, again, Mary Smith, Joe White is back out here. We're on scene. Your agency needs to be on scene right now to help cajole these individuals, saying, listen, you need to come with us. We're trying to help you get back on your feet. So that was very, very important to me, and I think it's important to the police department, but it's also important to those individuals who are in need. This homelessness, or panhandling, loss of job, loss of family, mental health, drug addiction. It's a very complicated issue. Police cannot do it all. So the agencies, again, I mentioned, we expect them to be working hand in hand with our police department. If it's not a criminal activity, the shift goes to them to get them the help. We had a wonderful Native American flag raising this Saturday, late morning, early afternoon. The harvest, I do it every year, and we had a good crowd within the COVID-19, and Gloria Peeler, who is known as Gentle Running Deer, but it was a very, very nice event, and the harvest on that. This past Thursday, Commissioner Claproot, Solicitor Pakula, Commissioner Helen Carlton-Harris, and my Chief Diversity Officer, Attorney Talia G., announced our continued efforts, Commissioner Claproot, continued efforts on changes and many initiatives she has put forth to address and embrace the DOJ report, and my continued conversations, again, over the weekend with Judge Ireland. Again, his advice and wisdom and direction has been invaluable. So we've made a lot of headway, and we're going to continue to keep moving forward. On the fire front, again, we're a little short-handed today. Commissioner Calvi has to be attending a meeting. Fire, nobody is down with COVID-19, which is great. They had a major, major fire on Mansfield Street. Thank God nobody was injured or killed. There was a loss of a dog. The members were able to get out. This did expand to touch about over 4 structures plus vehicles. Fire did a very good job in containing it to minor damage on the other houses, but major damage on Mansfield Street. On the police front, Commissioner Claproot indicates to me nobody's down on COVID-19, which is fantastic. We had a great day yesterday, about 3 hours. We did a first responders thank you day parade across all sections of the city of Springfield and parks, and this was also not only to say thank you to our first responders, police, fire, AMR, state police, you name it, and we'll say thank you to our residents. And it was just a great response, and many gifts were handed out to the kids in all areas, and Bishop Neil Boyd, who was driving with me, and my Chief of Staff, Tom Ash, did some opening prayers, and Commissioner and I, and the Bishop and others made sure we stopped at the sites where we had a number of people there. Beautiful mosaic, so it was really nice. Commissioner will get into, they took 15 more guns off the street. 2 of those were ghost guns, and I just don't know what it is. Once again, the Black Lives mural was defaced or vandalized over the weekend, not to the extent prior, but it will be once again cleaned immediately. We do have video on it, so Commissioner indicates to me we have video. A complaint will be issued, as with the past instance, and we kick it up to court, and then we're hoping that the court will follow through with a complaint, and then we can issue all the information. But to the individuals looking to desecrate any monuments or murals, smile, because you're going to be on candid camera. And we're going to get you, and I'm going to make an example. We're going to make an example out of you. So please, don't do it. Don't do it. DPW Director Chris Signoli indicates to me nobody's down in COVID, which is very good. No issues. They're on schedule. If you haven't been there, I think we're doing something tomorrow, but the Six Corners Roundabout, rave reviews. We'll be doing a little announcement there tomorrow, and I was on Central Street corridor late Friday afternoon, early evening. That reconfiguration of traffic is going on, and it's going to be tremendous there. And Ruth Elizabeth Park is coming along very, very well. We're transforming that whole area. Again, EchoDev, CDO Tim Sheen indicates to me he'll speak more on the homeless grant, but he also indicated to me the action plan is going out for CDBG. CARES Act, about $1.7 million. This is going to be directed, we'll have it posted today, public hearing shortly. We're directing this to EchoDev, Economic Development, and Workforce Development to give us maximum flexibility. On our finances, CAFO TJ Plan indicates to me we are down $6 million since COVID started. We're down about $1,078,000 on FY21 budget. Overall in deficit spending since this COVID-19 started, $8.7 million. But as we've done with other natural man-made disasters, we're tracking all that funds for reimbursement. We've been able to knock it down to 5.2, and that's offsetting on grants. And also we continue to go after FEMA money. Superintendent Dan Warwick indicates to me today we will go over 3 million meals given out to our families and students, which is breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. And I thank Superintendent Warwick for pursuing that USDA waiver, which allows us to give weekend meals. 94,000 weekend meals were given out this past weekend. We've added another site. Bowles School has been added. That's 18 sites now. We shifted the hours to mid to late afternoon. Dan will get into that. We had a good first week opening. Dan has also beefed up the help desk, bilingual, the IT support for students and parents, and I believe that's going to be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. On that. Attendance, Dan will tell you, nearly 92% attendance. Again, we are tracking attendance, and structured education is going on. Kindergarten starts today. Preschool starts next week. We picked up another 1.2. Dan will speak on a grant to go to iPads, Comcast Essentials to help families out, and computers. And the school committee Thursday night, which was very heartfelt. Young man we lost way too young, but made really an outstanding impact to our young people at the High School of Science and Technology. It was Coach Kamari Williams, who not only helped those ball players on the court, but off the court. He passed unexpectedly, and we'll be naming at the appropriate time the gym, the High School of Science and Technology gym, after Coach Kamari Williams. God rest his soul. Pat Sullivan, again, his report, and he is unable to be with us today. First of all, I want to give Pat congratulations again. He received the national award and nominated him the EPA Lifetime Achievement Award. Green, he's always been my green person, and that's an outstanding award, well-deserved an achievement for Pat Sullivan. He continues to work with Helen Carlton Harris on our strategies, staging plans, winter plans for all buildings here in the city of Springfield. He's following up with our CAFO TJ plan on finances, COVID-19, building recommendations that we have to do. Sea Arena is open. Ice time is available for all you hockey aficionados. Our all-park construction is on schedule. School building projects, summer projects are wrapping up. As you know, we've spent well over $600 million on building new schools and rehabbing our older schools. Those projects continue, and Pat also continues to work with Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris with the industrial hygienist on all our school buildings, and Superintendent Warwick, as we continue reviewing all our school buildings to make sure that they're up to par. There is no air quality situation there, but we're going on the stringent guidelines of COVID-19 on ventilation, movement of air, to the time when everything is safe, that we can come back to our schools. So that continues. Solicitor Pakula and Attorney Mahoney are covering a court case today. The Oasis Food Bank with John Foley continues Fridays at Central High School. We're serving about 3,500 families with a lot of partners there. Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, Sedesco, milk, vegetable, meats, you name it. And we worked with the police department, and we worked with the DPW on that. So again, without further ado, now for the hospital medical update, I will bring up the President and CEO of Bay State Health Systems, Dr. Mark Kerouac. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for again holding these events and inviting us. Very important public service, and thanks again for the cooperation of your whole team. Really not much new to report from Bay State Health. We currently have 13 patients in the hospital with COVID-19, 4 of them in our ICU. We're continuing to test about 1,000 people a day with a less than 1% positivity rate. I hope in the next few weeks to have an announcement about increasing testing capacity, but nothing soon on that, nothing today on that. Our stores of protective equipment are adequate, and our beds are set aside for surge. That's pretty much the story from Bay State Health. Like many folks who are focused on COVID, I look every Wednesday at the state's public health report, which classifies the towns as red, yellow, or green, green obviously being the best with the lowest rates. And the great majority of towns are in the green this week, which is terrific. However, Munson turned up red this week, just like West Hampton did a few weeks before, and Granby a few weeks before that. And as you know, we're starting to see outbreaks related to college reopenings or weddings. In a sense, we've kind of entered the brush fire phase of this. And as you know, brush fires can turn into forest fires. I think we need to really rethink how we're going to keep these little outbreaks under control so we don't slip backwards. And part of that, in my opinion, is to combat another epidemic, an epidemic of COVID fatigue or COVID denial. Unfortunately, people are continuing to gather in social settings without masks or without social distancing. Somehow they believe they're free of the virus, or they just prefer not to think about it. This is a real recipe for failure, particularly when the risk for transmission are going to go up in the coming winter months with more people staying indoors in close quarters. Whenever I go into a building, or whenever I'm among a crowd, I assume that there is somebody there that has the virus and who's shedding it without symptoms. That somebody may even be me. I'm rounding in the hospital each week, so maybe I'm more risk than the rest of us. I'm conscious of the surfaces I touch and the people I get close to. I consistently wear a mask, and that doesn't guarantee that I or those around me will be completely safe, but it greatly lowers the risk. At this time, nobody should ever think that any building or crowd in Western Mass is free of COVID. Sadly, we seem to need to learn that lesson again and again over the last few weeks. Consider for a minute the following analogy. Let's imagine that by some stroke of good luck, we went a month without having an accident on I-91, and the governor then proclaimed it to be an accident-free highway from border to border. Would any of us feel that we could then just start texting and driving or drinking and driving without having to worry? Of course not. We all know there are risks to driving, and we take precautions to minimize those risks. And COVID is no different. You're at risk in a crowd or a public building, but wearing a mask, keeping distance, and washing hands can keep that risk very low. It's important also to remember that releasing a safe and effective vaccine will not change that dynamic for some time. We don't yet know if the vaccine that's going to be coming, likely next year, will be highly effective, like the measles vaccine is, or only moderately effective, like the flu vaccine. And we're pretty sure that the rollout is going to be somewhat slow and incomplete because some people have expressed a reluctance to get it because they don't trust federal authorities. I expect that we'll be well into 2021 before the virus numbers are so low for so long that the governor will lift all of these restrictions. And even then, we're going to be at some risk for the reintroduction of the virus from travelers from outside of the state. So I am not saying all this to be a party pooper or because I love wearing a mask. I think this is that constantly being on your guard and this constant state of vigilance is a terrible way to live. But it's a heck of a lot better than getting sick because we decided to take a risk when we could have chosen to protect ourselves. If we can maintain this mindset of being careful in simple ways on a consistent basis in public places, we can reduce the frequency of these brush fires and their impact and hopefully break this pattern we've been seeing in the last few weeks. So thank you, and I'll pass it over now to Dr. Roos.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kerouac. Before I bring up Dr. Roos, too, what Dr. Kerouac indicated, people are getting a little stir-crazy now and going out, and I know I'm asking each and every one of you, especially our restaurants, I try to, every week, whether takeout or this past week, my wife Carl and I were at Theodore's outside, that not only when you're there, whether inside or outside, the masks unless you're eating, but don't forget those restaurants. It's going to get a little cooler. We're going to work with them, whether you eat inside or outside or takeout, it's important. And also on top of that, which we announced last week, to the license fees. It was the right thing to do. Many of these restaurants and obviously bars are limited, if open at all, and I'm waiving all those fees for FY going into 2021 to give a little bit helps and give them somewhat of a break. But I think before I bring up Dr. Roos again, to what Dr. Kerouac, I'm sure Dr. Roos will say, people are getting a little stir-crazy, and things are getting better, I don't need a mask, I don't need to do this, do that. You still do, because we're starting to see, and Helen Colton-Harris will speak about it, a little slow creep that is occurring. Without further ado, the Chief Medical Officer of Mercy Hospital, Trinity Health, Dr. Robert Roos.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mayor, and for that reminder as well, and to your entire team for all the work that you continue to do to lead this effort. And also thanks to the media for continuing to report on the COVID pandemic as the information is critical for our entire community. And this morning, to all of you at home who live and celebrate the Jewish faith and traditions, I want to say Happy New Year. This weekend was Rosh Hashanah, of course, which marks the beginning of a period of self-reflection that leads up to one of the most holiest days in the year, Yom Kippur. And if there's anything good or bad that the coronavirus has brought to many of us over the past year, it's been plenty of time for self-reflection. And hopefully, with some of that, a better awareness of ourselves. Most of us have spent a lot more time at home. Most of us have pulled back from some of the usual activities that we've done. We've also been forced to confront at times new moods or understand better what our own fears and anxieties are. We've had to confront how we feel about changes in our routines and think constantly about how we interact with our family, our friends, our neighbors. We've asked ourselves questions and sometimes struggled to answer things that we never thought we would, like, will I wear a mask in public for months on end? Do I want my kids to go to school in person or remotely? And should I see my family for the holidays? And then when we've thought about our own answers to those questions, we've had to think about the consequences of those decisions and asked ourselves more questions like, what does it mean to other people if I don't see my family? Or what kind of person am I if I do or don't choose to wear a mask in public? These have been unusual and I would say provocative times. The pandemic has forced us to not only do things differently, but also to think differently and to learn differently. And so as someone who has served as the incident commander of our health system's pandemic response and have literally thought about COVID every single day of this year, I think it's not only what we've learned from this pandemic, but also how we've learned it and how we have applied it that's been particularly important. We've gathered knowledge with a speed that's been quite unprecedented. The span of what we've learned has been extremely widespread and diverse. We've looked at things across the globe and also within ourselves to learn and improve in the name of public health. And as of this week, when I reflect, we realize that there's now been more than 31 million people across the globe that have been infected with the coronavirus. And 1 million people will have died as a result. In the United States, that number is more than 6.8 million infected, and we will have more than 200,000 have died as a result this week. In only 9 months, I did a quick search of a scientific database for COVID-19, and it's revealed that there have been 56,000 research papers published, which is roughly 200 a day. The entire genome of the virus has been sequenced, and we know how it's transmitted. We have figured out together how to manufacture PPE, print face shields out of 3D printers, and for the most part, develop accurate and easier to use tests for the virus. There are databases and health departments that are tracking every single infection across nearly the entire globe, and there are more than 30 potential vaccines currently undergoing trials. And some of the companies, as you know, are now publishing their clinical trial designs in publicly available documents. It's pretty incredible to think about. Yet with all the data that we've gathered and all the scientific understanding that is amassing, it remains evident that the only path forward, the journey to zero COVID, will not come in the form of data or numbers or a magical scientific breakthrough, but only through individual human behavior. It's not what each one of us knows, it's what each one of us does that matters. We already have the tools at our disposal with masks and hand hygiene, physical distancing protocols, testing and tracing. And I would argue that we've done very well in supporting this here in our local community and throughout the state. But as I've mentioned, there are still high numbers of infections in many areas of the country. We still have new patients being hospitalized, even here in our local community, and there still are people dying from this illness here in the United States, and at rates that are higher than some other countries with similar economic and health system profiles, like in Western Europe. So the good news is right now, the number of hospitalized patients remains fairly low. At Mercy, as of this morning, we have just one hospitalized patient who's not in the ICU with an active COVID infection. Last week, we had 6 consecutive days with no patients hospitalized with COVID. We've seen our test positivity rate remain low and hover around the state average. This past week, it was 1%. We performed over 2,200 tests, and now, to date, we've performed more than 44,000. And these are encouraging numbers. And so when we reflect on what has helped us get there, it has been on the continued focus on what we've learned to help keep each other safe and healthy. It has been, as Dr. Kerouac mentioned so eloquently, the constant vigilance and awareness that COVID can be present where we may least expect it. And it's been the commitment on behalf of each one of us, including our colleagues, our patients, our visitors, and all of our community members, in maintaining the public health practices that have led us to this point so far. It's also helped the state achieve a declining test positivity rate, which is now at 0.8%, and an average daily incidence rate of less than 5 per 100,000. But if you looked at the state overall, that means the state would still be yellow on the map, and so we still have some work to do. Notably, when you look at the weekly DPH report, I am encouraged by a relatively low rate of infections attributed to colleges and universities thus far, and want to commend the institutions of higher education with the protocols that they've put out. So far in Massachusetts, there have been 499 confirmed cases with over 518,000 tests performed, which puts the positivity rate at about 0.1%. Yet we've seen throughout this pandemic, and we've seen even recently, where there's individual actions or individual lack of awareness that has created challenges where even one person can create a super spreader event or a cluster of infections. We've seen this at weddings, we've seen this with large gatherings, we've seen it at colleges and universities, and we've seen it at restaurants and bars. So as we approach the winter, we recognize that people are getting tired, and that there may be that urge to relax restrictions creep in, that the stress in people's lives continues to be significant, and that the challenge is to maintain the energy throughout this is very real. But we must not relent. That's one of the reasons why at Mercy Medical Center, in addition to maintaining and enforcing our policies and practices, we're also investing in our caregivers more over the last few months by giving them time for reflection, self-care, and building resiliency. Over the past few months, we have created what we've called colleague care teams, who have provided support right at the individual level on the unit, where directors and managers will take care of the patients so that the frontline staff can have a reprieve for a few moments. We've also decided now to take it a step further and bring facilitated resiliency sessions to our colleagues with semi-structured reflective exercises to allow them to share and process and support each other. We're going unit to unit, shift by shift, day by day, evening, and night, to allow the teams the space, the time, and the safety to engage with what they've been through and what we still have ahead of us. We believe that this type of learning is what's going to help us provide better care and a better experience. We believe that it's important to support our teams, to be safe and to be aware and remain strong. And I believe that allowing people to share these personal moments and supporting each other with finding the answers to those tough questions is ultimately which will help us shape individual behaviors and actions in a positive direction. So I'll end with reminding us all to wear a mask, sanitize our hands, keep our physical distance from each other, be cautious with where you go and who you interact with, and think about what you do. Think about how what you do matters. I think that one day when we look back and reflect on all that we have learned throughout this pandemic, that we will not help but be impressed. But ultimately, it's what we do with the information. It's how we show that we have valued each other with what we've learned that will have made the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russo. Now I'll have Dr. Kerouac and Dr. Russo up here for any questions from the media. I know Mike Mastrodelli's here, Dr. Russo, 2240 Hall. Yeah, any questions you might have of Dr. Kerouac, Dr. Russo? Mike?
We're obviously looking ahead, potentially the second wave of COVID-19. Just wanted to see how your
Yeah, I think we've all hospitals in the state have been reserving beds, about 20% of our bed capacity in case a surge comes. We've been ramping up our testing capacity, plus we've been improving treatment so patients are less likely to need the hospital or need it for as long. And as for flu, you know, we're putting a big push on flu vaccinations so that we'll reduce the likelihood of flu. I think all this stuff is going to help with the flu too.
I echo the same things. We've, you know, as hospital systems, we've been aligned in this from the very beginning. We recognize that more infections could come in the fall and winter as a second wave, as there's typically increases in respiratory infections in the wintertime. And we have similarly continued the protocols that we've put in place to deliver safe care, looking to expand our testing both for the flu, other respiratory illnesses, and COVID, and encouraging and in some cases requiring vaccinations for influenza so that we can reduce the overall burden of respiratory illness. So we're making sure our providers and teams are well equipped to deal with both.
Would it still be recommended to, of course, go through with the flu shots as they're going through now, obviously, with COVID and all this going on?
I think you asked, would it still be worthwhile going ahead with vaccination for influenza? I think this is likely to be the most important season to receive an influenza vaccine because of the existence of the coronavirus. And we don't yet have a lot of information on how the two viruses would interact if somebody were to acquire them both, but we could certainly imagine that it would cause more complications and put people at more risk of death. It also has the benefit of reducing individuals who would present with a respiratory illness where the diagnosis would be more uncertain and would require additional testing and additional test capacity. So this is a year where it is as important as it's ever been and possibly even more so.
That's okay.
Some people wearing those instead of masks, I assume the recommendation is to go with a mask versus.
Yeah, face shields provide some protection for the individual wearer, but not as much as a mask, and they provide much less protection in terms of virus that might be being shed by the wearer. So it's important now, the CDC has issued some recent guidance on the importance of eye protection for people in clinical situations, and so now everyone at our hospital is wearing eye protection in addition to the mask, but to wear a face shield instead of a mask, you are taking a step down in terms of the quality of protection.
Any other questions or comments? Paul Tuffield, please.
What do you think is the suggestion of having flu shot clinics at the COVID testing sites?
It's an interesting idea. I think that we've done a pretty good job over the years of getting flu shots out in a number of different venues that are convenient to people, senior centers, pharmacies, et cetera. But novel ideas like that would be, I think are worth considering.
You get 10% of that, Paul.
Yeah.
Dr. Roos?
No other comment on that. It's something to consider for sure.
Just a question about indoor gatherings. There's been a lot of talk of what happened in Westfield. So I assume the protocol is still the same. Still should be social distancing as you understand the mask wearing. So when obviously the public isn't seeing this, it obviously is causing some concern as well.
Yeah, I mean, basically the guidelines are in place to prevent that. I think we do know that when people are in crowded situations, indoors without masks, where the ventilation is not all it should be, that can create spreading events. And so it's important for everybody to follow the governor's recommendations.
Carol, Dr. Roos? Any other questions or comments from media? Okay, Dr.
Thank you,
Carol,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Mr. Mayor.
Stay healthy and thank you
Thank
for
you.
all what your teams are doing for us. We appreciate that. Also, you do see people every once in a while with the mask and they wear it below their nose. You can't. You have to wear the mask covering your nose, your mouth area here. So please adhere to that. It's got to cover that whole area. But at times you do see a number of people say, by the way, your mask, they wear it below their nose. That's not the proper way to wear it. Now, who's going to tell you the proper way to stay on top of this and defeat this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic is the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Helen Carlton Harris.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And as always, thank you for your support. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there are 125,479 positive cases as of yesterday. 9,100 individuals in our state have died. In Hampden County, there are 7,986 positives and 772 individuals have died. The mayor has given you the numbers for the city of Springfield, but let me further break them down. From August the 31st to September 6th, there were 29 cases. From September 7th to September 13th, there were 39 cases. From September 14th to September 30th, there were, from September 14th until September 20th, there were 51 cases. What you're seeing in our city is a slow creep of cases. Also, this could be reflective of the Labor Day holiday. Usually 2 weeks after a holiday, we saw this with Memorial Day. We saw it with the 4th of July. I believe we're seeing it with Labor Day. After 2 weeks, we start to see an increase in cases based on potential gatherings. And so it's important to understand that this slow creep is preventable. We can do the things necessary in order to sustain our status as a green city. The national data, 6.9 million individuals have been diagnosed with COVID. We have lost in our nation 200,000 individuals. That is important because we roll those numbers off of our tongues as if they were everyday data. What we are talking about is 200,000 individuals in our nation who have died from COVID-19. I want us never to forget the individual, the life, the family, and the person. Testing, as the mayor mentioned, we have expanded Stop the Spread in the city. Each municipality was asked whether they want to continue, and the city of Springfield will continue till October 31st. AFC Urgent Care, 415 Cooley Street, will be testing Monday through Friday, 11 to 7, and Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 4. AMR, who, as the mayor has indicated, is an amazing partner for the city of Springfield, will be at Eastfield Mall daily, 1655 Boston Road from 8 to 6, and at their Cottage Street facility from 10 to 3. Fallon is at Springfield Technical Community College, Monday through Saturday, 12 to 5. Currently, based on all of the numbers that I have, we have tested over 5,000 Springfield residents, including the testing that was done by Tapestry Health previously. Our testing protocols are really very simple. It starts with you, the public. It starts with a testing site, a medical provider, and a lab interface, and then the reporting to the individual, DPH, and the local Board of Health. That is important because you, as an individual, once you're tested, will be notified, but the Board of Health and the state are notified of the positive case as well. that's when we start our contact tracing. Remember, contact tracing is the process of identifications of persons who have come in contact with an infected person. By doing contact tracing, we can further reduce community spread. There are two things that happen once an individual gets a positive test. Isolation separates sick people with the contagious disease, the COVID-19, from people who are not sick. Quarantine separates and restricts the movement of people who were exposed to someone with COVID-19. These individuals are exposed and they may know it or they may not know it. So it's important that when we call you around contact tracing, or if we tell you that there's an individual who has given us information that they may have come in contact with you, it's important to respond to our requests and inquiries. We're not doing it to get into your business or try to find out where you have been. We're doing it to prevent community spread. Community spread is often the source of the infection is unknown. I think Dr. Kerouac did a nice job of telling us that even he, when he's amongst people, just makes the assumption that there is someone in the environment who may be COVID positive. And if in fact we all behave that way, then I think we can begin to stem the tide nationally of COVID-19, but certainly here in the Western region. Travel orders. Wyoming is no longer exempt in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And so New Mexico has been added, as you know, so it's Colorado, Connecticut, Maine, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington. Again, Wyoming is no longer considered a state that is exempt. So if you are coming from any other state, you must fill out a travel form or have a negative test within 72 hours. That is how we keep track. And we have had many individuals who have come into the Commonwealth, over 100,000, maybe over 150,000 now, who have filled out the travel form. If you do not do this, you can be fined $500 a day. So individuals, please take note. If you have relatives coming to the city of Springfield or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts from states, please fill out the travel form and please comply. Flu shots. You have heard from both of the physicians about flu shots. A yearly flu shot is recommended for anyone 6 months of age and older. The flu shot does not protect you from COVID-19. However, it does help in terms of the flu infection. It's recommended that you get your flu shot by the end of October, if possible. It takes 2 weeks to build up immune protection. So if you get your flu shot sooner than later, the process of immune protection can begin. You can get COVID-19 and flu at the same time. I think you heard that. But if you have the flu shot, certainly the symptoms could be lessened. So individuals, again, with underlying conditions, chronic diseases, cardiovascular disease, asthma, diabetes, and those individuals who are immune compromised, we certainly request that you make getting a flu shot a priority. Amazingly enough, the steps we take for COVID are the same steps that will help us during flu season as well. Avoiding close contact with sick people, staying home if you're sick, avoiding touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, clean and disinfect surfaces and frequently touched items, and face coverings. I want to remind our individuals in the city and across the region to make sure that you are stocking up on food, medical supplies, and please take care of each other and elderly. As we start to go indoors, it is also important that you may consider having the ability to have circulation, air circulation in your home. So do think about how you can perhaps occasionally, if you don't have a device, open windows occasionally, but as you move indoors, think about air circulation. It is important. We are continuing to work with institutions of higher learning, colleges. We know that we have had some limited cases on college campuses in the city of Springfield and across the region, but we do continue to work with our colleges and appreciate so much they're contacting us immediately so we can start that all-important contact tracing. COVID-19 is stressful to you and your children. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, sad, anxious, fear, anger, loneliness, mood swings, and sometimes just not feeling like yourself. These are unprecedented times. It's important to acknowledge we're doing COVID-19 at the same time as a social justice movement. We're having looming national elections. If you feel overwhelmed and you feel tired and you feel exhausted and you feel as though you are in this alone, I think we all have that feeling. I would ask you to talk to family and friends and talk to a family member or talk to a professional. Please do remember you are not in this by yourself. Everyone can relate to what you're feeling, I believe, and so please take the opportunity to talk to family members. Do not let this internalize and fester within you. Take the opportunity to reach out. Finally, September is Emergency Preparedness Month. The theme is Disasters Don't Wait, Make a Plan Today. The mayor will tell you that every September we unveil Emergency Preparedness Month in the city of Springfield. We have not done that in a large way, which we usually do, but during this time of COVID-19, it is more important than ever to have a plan. Make a plan, talk to your friends, family about how you will communicate before and during a disaster, build a kit, gather those supplies that you will need for several days for everyone in your household should we have a disaster. Prepare for a disaster. Learn how to make your home stronger and safe and yourself in terms of the resiliency that it takes to get through a disaster, particularly COVID-19. And teach youth, talk to your young people about disasters, about COVID, about what we're all experiencing right now in this nation. Please give your young folks information. We know that these are difficult times. Your children are learning remotely. They're in your homes. You are in your homes. All of us are trying to do the best we can to stay healthy and get each other through this. Finally, let me also end where the mayor started, just to acknowledge the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a woman that I so greatly admired because she was a woman of strength, she was a woman of character, and she was a woman of integrity. And she cared about women's rights. She cared about seeing women advance in their professional and personal careers. She will definitely be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Thank you, Commissioner Carlton, Helen, and well put on Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now I'm going to bring up on our public safety component, Police Commissioner Cheryl Clapprood. Just to let you know, we're having another, we've continued with, bless you, Audrey, we've continued with forums, some smaller in nature, some private in nature, but our next major public listening community forum is Commissioner Clapprood continues on initiative and changes pertaining to DOJ will be this Saturday. Information will be coming out this Saturday, September 26th at 10:30 a.m. Judge Roderick Ireland will also be participating in that. And this will be, again, our next major listening community forum as we all come together to work together to move our city of Springfield forward. So with the public safety update, the Springfield Police Commissioner Cheryl Clapper.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Springfield Police Department, we have 0 out or affected by COVID at this time. Since I spoke with you last Monday, 15 illegal handguns, large capacity guns have been taken off the street. 2 are what they consider to be ghost guns. A couple of weapons came from a Liberty Street address where there was a fire, and a large quantity of marijuana was seized, cash, and the guns. And again, if Commissioner Calvi was here with me, I'm sure he would also reiterate that a lot of these houses that are used for illegal grows for marijuana are sources of fires. The normal household electrical system is not set up for such electric use that it takes to have an illegal grow for marijuana. So we would urge everyone to think about that before they start endeavoring in an illegal marijuana grow. What the legalization of marijuana has done, unfortunately, it's also a pretty lucrative black market. So we still have high rate of crimes, violent crimes, and fires due to the illegal grow of marijuana. I would also reiterate what the mayor said about yesterday was wonderful. We had a large parade through the city from Forest Park through the X area into Greenleaf, Indian Orchard, East Springfield, Blunt Park, Van Horn, Marshall Roy, North End. It was great just to have officers out and smiling and have people smiling back at us. I thought it was well received. People waving from their houses and on the side of the streets, and even people who had to pull over in traffic, they did so to record it. So, and they smiled and waved, and I thought it was very successful. I thank the mayor for participating in that. I thank Commissioner Calvi had some fire apparatus in it, and Patrick, thank you for AMR's participation, and Sheriff Cochi, thank you for the sheriff's participation. Well received. I believe September 15th started the National Hispanic Heritage Awareness. So let me right now thank every Latino and Latina officer I have. I have a total of 161 on the Springfield Police Department, and I thank you all for your service and your diligence. I will be in touch with Director Pat Sullivan. Learn to Skate is scheduled for the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I don't know if it's doable yet. I will work with him and Commissioner Ellen Carlton and see if we can get some sort of a Learn to Skate program going. I know it's well received, and the officers like doing it, so if it's possible, we will do it again. We'll let you know. I look forward to working with other agencies in reaching out and helping those in need on the streets, whether they're resorting to panhandling or it's just a case of homelessness, or whether it's prostitution to keep up with their drug habits. Again, it's solutions that the police department cannot come up with alone. We have very few options. Our BHN program is working out well. They are busy day and night. That is where a behavioral health network officer responds with a cruiser to a call that we suspect mental illness, and that's working really, really well. We're able to have a few more options because of that Bay State Behavioral Health Network person with us. So it will work well, I'm sure, having other agencies with us to solve some of the other problems that plague the city, like homelessness, and those that feel the only way that they can make ends meet is through getting out there and panhandling. And the prostitution I have been working on for years. Right now, it takes about 7 to 15 arrests for prostitution before I can get anyone held for any length of time that's really going to help these women out. So I look forward to solutions to that, and I look forward to working with Commissioner Carlton and anyone else that's going to be involved in the outreach program. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Clapper. We'll now move to the school component, and Superintendent of Springfield Public Schools, Dan Warwick, will give an update. And we opened up, and good feedback. Again, this is all new to us, surreal, challenging times, but I think we are ahead of the curve compared to other systems across the Commonwealth and the country, and we're going to continue to strive to do better and better. And thank you to the patients, the students, and the families. Superintendent of Springfield Public Schools, Dan Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. We have some very good news. Today, we'll move over 3 million meals distributed from the Springfield Public Schools since the shutdown in March. So an incredible piece there that we've been able to accomplish. We've been able to get several waivers from the USDA so we can distribute from the schools in bulk and on the weekends. This weekend alone, we were able to deliver 94,060 meals to families. So a huge accomplishment. We've opened up an extra help desk. We have one within the school system. We've contracted with a private vendor to open up a bilingual help desk that's going to be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day to assist parents and families with the process of getting connected and working with their laptops in each home. On the subject of laptops, again, any family who is yet to have a laptop delivered to their home, they can call the school, either pick one up at the school, or we'll actually deliver it to their home. Student attendance this last week, which was our first week of school, was over 90% every day. It was 91.7% on Friday. It was good news. It actually was better than when we were in live session. So that was very good news. So a lot of our students were online, were focused, and were provided with an entire school day of learning. For any family, again, who needs help, we have several options for them to call and get help. We started kindergarten today, and that's open. And next Monday, we're going to start all of our preschool classes. Again, I talked about the laptop distribution. We were able to receive a $1.2 million grant from DESE, which we used to purchase Comcast Essentials for families. So if they have problems with internet connectivity, we can help. We also spent over $600,000 on iPads. So all of our preschool students will have iPads, and again, we'll deliver them from the schools, just like we did the laptops. And we purchased some extra laptops because leaving the laptops home over the summer, we're going to experience some increased loss there. So we invested more heavily in those. And again, we had support from the mayor to make sure we added to our laptop piece. So I want to thank the mayor for that. I want to thank the other city department heads, Helen Carlton Harris, who's been great, and Pat Sullivan. We're doing a complete ventilation analysis with a industrial hygienist. As the mayor said earlier, we do not have an air quality problem in our buildings, but we're worried about airflow and want to make sure that our students and staff are safe when we do return to the buildings. And I just thank the mayor and thank the school committee for their support in considering naming the gymnasium at the High School of Science and Technology for Kamari Williams. I was fortunate enough to watch Kamari as a high school player here in the city of Springfield. He's just a wonderful, wonderful human being, was a great teacher for us, and did an absolutely phenomenal job with the SciTech basketball program. And SciTech has experienced the largest increase in graduation rate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Just back in 2012, it was in the 39.9%. It's now at 86.9%. So SciTech's had a rebirth, and that's due to some of the staff like Kamari Williams that do so much for our kids that you don't hear behind the scenes. So it was a tragedy losing him, and I really thank the mayor for his support in naming the gymnasium for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. And the apple doesn't fall too far away from the tree. His dad, Rep. Bud Williams, was a hell of a basketball player, too. the old trade. And I want to thank school committee woman Barbara Gresham for shepherding this to myself and Superintendent Warwick and the school committee on a very worthy naming and cause. And God rest your soul, Kamari. With that, we'll move to an update on our street attack, and with DPW Director Chris Signoli. And again, those men and women have been out there day in and day out since the onset of this COVID-19 coronavirus, and we appreciate that. The Department of Public Works Director for the City of Springfield, Chris Signoli.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you notice Dan thanked everybody, didn't thank me again? I know. Another shot. Good morning, everybody. DPW has no employees out with COVID at this point, and we are operating with all of our employees. Currently, the DPW is down about 15 or 16 employees due to retirements, workman's comp. There will be openings in the department, so people who are interested, we are a civil service department, so please feel free to go onto the city website and apply for the DPW project or positions that will be open. As the mayor mentioned, tomorrow morning at 10:30, we will be having an event at Six Corners. The project is complete at this point, and really want to do a celebration with the neighborhood and the people who have been involved with that project from the days following the tornado, when we had the neighborhood meet and greets out there and had all the programming for rebuilding the city after the tornado. So it definitely has been a long time coming. In the same neighborhood, we will be having an event shortly for the beginning of the Central Street project as well. The department has seen a massive increase in recycling, bulk, and trash pickup around the city since the beginning of March, and it has continued to spike. We are up about 25% above what we would normally be, so there is a lot of material out there that people are disposing of since they're at home. Again, we are on time for that, so if you need appointments for bulk, again, call 311. But that is it with regard to the DPW. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Signoli, and he's absolutely right. I think there was a report on NPR earlier this morning about people being home, obviously, and much more trash, refuge, recycling, and bulk items have been put forth, which affects our bottom line, but we're going to try to continue to be efficient and effective and compassionate and understanding on that. And as I always say, Springfield's in the business of doing business, and Chief Development Officer Tim Sheehan and his team have done a tremendous job. And once again, I think we've pumped out well over $7 million. The number continues to increase on EcoDev to help small businesses and restaurants, and also our residents, and pertaining to mortgages, utilities, and rents. So we're going to continue to do that as we hopeful to move out of triage into stabilization, and once we defeat this COVID-19 into a rapid rebound to keep these businesses moving forward. Without further ado, the Chief Development Officer of the City of Springfield, Tim Sheehan.
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor indicated, this week the Development Services Division will be focused on getting out and publicly noticing the action plan for the second phase of the CDBG funding, $1.7 million associated with the CARES Act. The majority of that funding will go into special economic development activity. That gives us the maximum flexibility to respond to the needs of the small businesses as we're made aware of them. The other significant component will be workforce development and training. Approximately $350,000 will go into workforce development and training, with $1 million going into special economic development. The approval of the or the acceptance of the funding is on track to be before the council for their October 5th meeting. Again, the department is very focused on going through the processing steps of getting the funding out as quickly as possible, and we continue to do that. And I want to recognize the tremendous support that we've gotten from Congressman Neal's office, as well as the Boston Field Office for HUD. They've been extraordinary partners in helping us get through the funding cycles and getting the resources out as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Sheehan. That concludes our update. We'll take any questions or comments you might have. Audrey, Ms. Russo, Western Mass News. Sure, Superintendent Warren.
So right now, the students logging on, we haven't had an increase, but we're still working on it and going case by case, reaching out from every school to get everybody logged on. But it's improving every day, and we're moving forward with that.
And when it comes to the technological situations that were happening last week, after a couple of days of stepping back, did you notice that there was any one issue that was particularly common, or was it just different people for days trying to get assimilated to the remote learning?
There was a host of issues. One of the largest issues, however, was families who never turned on the computer all summer, and then turning it back on. They hadn't done a lot of updates, and there was some problems with that. But there was a host of issues, from internet issues to technology issues with their laptop that caused that. So we're working through each of those individually. That takes an individual reach out, identify the issue, and then rectify the problem. And we're working on all those, and the schools are, again, reaching out. They reached out for the 2 weeks before school opened, got to almost every family, so that they were aware of exactly what they needed to do. The families that really followed that have had great success. Again, over 92% have been on every day. So.
And you
Thank
also had some that were on their own personal computer.
Oh, you know, the other thing is, yeah.
When we were doing the IT.
Yeah, good point, Mayor. We did a report to school committee Thursday night on this. The other thing is, and we have allowed families that had their own device at home to continue to use the device, but it's more effective if they use our laptops and they're available for everyone. So folks who haven't reached out to get one of our laptops yet, that'll also help with all of the issues because it'll be one of our devices. So, sure. Well, we definitely had some that had some damage. We haven't done a full analysis. I'm sure some students who probably have moved out of the districts, we didn't recapture all those laptops, so that'll be an issue. That's why we put some extra money into the purchase over and above what we used to do, because our take-home policy was rather restricted before, and now in this scenario it needs to be wide open, and we understand there's going to be some losses associated with that. That's why we put more money in, and again, the mayor stepped up to put more money into the program to help us.
Did I hear you say correctly that attendance increased throughout the last week?
Attendance was increasing all during the week, and I think it averaged over 90% last week. So
Friday was the highest day?
I don't think Friday was the highest. I think we were up to 93%. It was 91.7 on Fridays. Friday we usually experience a little dip in attendance, and but I think it was either Wednesday. Wednesday, I believe, was 93%.
What happens if, how long do you go before what happens if a student doesn't log in at all after a certain amount of time goes by? What do you do with that?
Great question, Paul. We follow our attendance policy, so it's the same attendance policy as we do in a regular school year where students are reporting live. So first thing is reach out to the family. So the school reaches out to the family, try to get them engaged, try to figure out what's going wrong. We have attendance officers that can make home visits. We do everything we can to work with a family to get them involved. In the worst case scenarios where we've done everything we can, we've reached out, we've made home visits, then we go to the next step and contact DCF and ask them for support with a family. And in the worst case scenario where everything has failed, we go to the courts and we do a petition with the courts. So it would be the same as our normal policy. Truancy is when they don't report an absence and don't ask. So we start counting truancies on the first day they're out. We usually go to DCF after about 10 days. And then when it's a recurring constant problem, that's when we go to the courts for assistance.
How do you, in this unique situation, how do you determine, whether it's a legitimate technical issue preventing the student from watching, or whether it's a case of they're just not doing it?
Yeah, and we're going to get both. With a technical issue, again, when the schools are reaching out, when we're reaching out from our attendance office, we find out, resolve the technical issue, and then that wouldn't be a truancy issue at all. But where we find out it's just truancy, but in another form, then we have to chase it down from the truancy end.
And what's the difference, because I know you mentioned too, the live classes every day rather than the pre-recorded ones from back in spring. What's been the difference that you've noticed in the feedback you've gotten from parents when it comes to having their kids sit through live classes where they have to check in every day versus watching a pre-recorded class?
So I think what we find now is we scheduled it so the day is really full and taxing for the students. So I think the families have experienced that it's a far richer experience and a more rigorous experience, but it requires a great deal of engagement that's been more involved for the family. We have some lessons that we've had pre-recorded and some lessons we're offering live.
Other questions, Superintendent?
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, because of all your efforts, team's efforts, we are ahead of many of the larger districts in the Commonwealth, where we prepared ahead of time to have all these IT devices out. You see some districts are still waiting on orders to come in, but it's a work in progress, and I think that we're always going to look to continue to do better, but done pretty well right now in this surreal, challenging time. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much again to the media, to the TV and print radio media. Really appreciate, as Dr. Roos and Dr. Kerouac states, getting this information out into the public, the residents, and business community of the city of Springfield. Thank you. Thank you for your continued patience, understanding, and collaboration. We will defeat this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, and I'm very thankful to my cabinet heads and rank and file who are tested and true through a number of natural and man-made disasters. And I know people are getting a bit stir-crazy. We all are, and our families. But we have to stay ever vigilant. So keep doing those little things, because they mean a lot. Wear that mask. Wear it above your nose. Wash your hands. If you don't feel good, stay home. Try to social distance and physically distance 6 feet. We're going more into interior type living now. And you got to be cognizant of that if you're going someplace as the updates continue to come out about being cognizant that somebody could have that COVID-19 coronavirus. I'm very hopeful that the holiday season will bring good cheer to each and every one of us. But we have to continue to follow through on what has been recommended by the specialists. And we're going to continue to base our decisions on public health, medical, and the collaborating with our hospitals. That's key in order to have public confidence, consumer confidence, and business confidence. So the science of this is important, and we're going to stick to our motto. I'm not going to take one step forward, then end up taking 2 steps back. So go out and have a great day and good health, and God bless. Thank you very much.